now in the rental side, right? Nobody from Wall Street. So now what's going to happen is there's not going to be enough economic development going on because they're going to restrict their income, right? And so these are things that are happening all over the place. You know, I'm not bashing Oregon for passing a rent control law. I'm just saying the facts are the facts. Money goes to where it needs to go.
You see, the beauty about real estate is you learn to use debt to get rich. I'll give you another tip. If you're going to be rich, you have to learn to use debt. It's called other people's money. So when I hear poor people say to me, I don't have any money, I said, because you're an idiot. That's why. You're not supposed to use your money. You're supposed to use other people's money. But that's debt. I don't want to do that. And so they stay poor.
So I was super confused out of university. I barely got, to school. My parents never graduated from college. So, I got there through sports. And when I first got out, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I ended up, while I was a senior in college, managing an apartment building. And, the guy's like, hey, free rent. I go, in, you know what I mean? So literally that's how I started. So I got on site and I was managing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I grew up doing a lot of construction. So I knew how to fix stuff. And I also knew that people needed to pay rent. If they didn't, they needed to be out. So property management is not that difficult, but there's a lot to it. And so that was my very first experience around real estate. And so from there, I was managing a 60-unit building, and I remember like about 2 months into it, the owner drives up in his new Mercedes, and he comes in, really awesome guy. And he's like, hey, thank you for increasing the occupancy and cleaning this place up. And, and I already knew how much money I had, increased for him. And I just really was like, wow, well, I'm on the wrong side of the desk here, how do I get on that side? Seriously, I had no clue. I was about ready to graduate, and so I got my real estate license, went to work for a company in Seattle, which is where I'm from, and worked for them for 10 years and learned. I managed about 20,000 apartments up and down the western United States after I got my real estate license, and that was an incredible experience. And so at some point, I just decided, okay, I need to start owning these, right? And so I started small, like I think a lot of people should. I started with a single home, and then duplex, fourplex, 8 units. Now we have about 10,000 apartments, valued right around $1 billion. So it's just been crazy. 250 employees. We build them, we buy them, we renovate them. We have our own property management company. So it's been quite a journey. It's been awesome. It's been a great industry for me. I've been living passive income my whole life.
And I said, what do I have to do? And that's what my rich dad said to me. He says, you have to take a course in real estate. I said, real estate? Why? He says, well, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. I said, yeah, but aren't you going to teach me? He says, I don't have time to teach idiots. No, I want you to hear, rich dad really believed in education, but he didn't want to teach me. He says, that's not my job. Your job is to be a student, then I'll teach you. So I signed up for a 3-day course. I was watching television in Honolulu, and I was still in the Marine Corps, and this ad came on about learn how to invest in real estate. Money, no money down. You don't need any money. I said, that's what I want to do. So I took the course, and it was exactly as Rich Dad said to do. You see, the beauty about real estate is you learn to use debt to get rich. I'll give you another tip. If you're going to be rich, you have to learn to use debt. It's called other people's money. So when I hear poor people say to me, I don't have any money, I said, because you're an idiot. That's why. You're not supposed to use your money. You're supposed to use other people's money. But that's debt. I don't want to do that. And so they stay poor. So I did this course. So the instructor then gave with about 30 of us in the class. He says, all of you, this is your assignment. This is when you get your education. You will look at 100 properties in 90 days and write it up. So I would go to the real estate offices and I'd say, what kind of properties you got? I look through it. Then I went out, I might, in a week, I might look at maybe 6, 7, sometimes 10. And then I had to write a report on each one. So I go out next week. And then by the time I was into probably, of the 90 days, I was into 30 days, half the class had quit. That's the reason they're poor. They couldn't stick it out for 90 days. So I continued on. By the 60 days, the other half had quit of the class. Not half, but half of the half. And finally, it came down to the final days. There was like 6 of us final left. And all of us went on to become multimillionaires. And what we did is we just stuck it out. We just kept going, looking at properties, just saying, this is what we're looking for, da-da-da-da-da. And of course, realtors, they're real estate broker. You know why they're called broker? Because they're broker than you are, you know what I mean? And you try to take investment advice from those guys. Same as stock broker. If they were rich, they wouldn't be broke. Think about it. So anyway, I'm over there doing the deals, and finally I get through the 100 properties in 90 days. And then, and only then, did I know which property to buy.
Listen, people invest money with people that understand financial education. Trust me. I started with no money. Robert started with no money. All my friends started with no money. Some of us have been bankrupt. Some of us have lost businesses. There's been all kinds of things that happen. And it just is the way it is. But if you have financial knowledge, then that's when people invest. They invest in you. So I'll give you an example. I bought there was a piece of land that came across my desk 3 months ago.
Yeah.
It was a residential piece on a major road in town, but it had a billboard right in the middle of it. And so everybody was looking at that, trying to build it and develop it. It had been on the market for, almost 6 months. I was looking at the billboard. So I call up somebody I don't know anything about. I'm like, hey, is this a good location for a billboard? He's like, oh my God, yes. I go, what kind of revenues? He goes, we could probably do $2,000 to $3,000 a side. Well, the whole year that billboard had produced $5,000 for one whole year, okay? But everybody's looking at it for something. So I bought it. I paid $290,000 for the thing, for the property. I hired this guy. Now I've got $4,000 a month coming in on this billboard, $2,000 a side. I put an easement around it, and then I sold the land. Okay, so I just created $50,000 in passive income. I have no investment. That's financial knowledge. That's what I'm talking about. You don't need money to make money. Now maybe you don't have the $290,000, but that's okay. That's when you go to an investor and you say, hey, give me $290. Here's my idea. I already met with a billboard guy, right? It's a plan. And then they're going to give you the money like that. You don't need money. And then maybe you split the deal with them 50-50, maybe you make $2,000 a month. It doesn't really matter. The point is, it's knowledge. It's absolutely knowledge. It's the same way with real estate, apartments or commercial office. I bought a commercial office building, right on Scottsdale Road. I paid hardly anything for it because it was vacant and the rents were 50% under market. 3 years later, I've increased it 150%. Literally financial knowledge, and you don't have to be the person that does it all. Well, I think you got to take a look at what a crash does, first of all. So what happens during a crash? People move to rentals.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened in the last one. So that's a good thing if you're buying rentals. But if you're buying them too high, it's not a good thing, right? So I met with a guy yesterday. He's from Mexico, and they're doing a bunch of stuff in Argentina and Spain, and they bought some property in Old Town Scottsdale.
Wow.
He paid $3 million an acre. I was like, oh my gosh, and I started putting the math together. And I said, dude, you're not going to make any money. Like your rents have to be over $3,000 a month. And that's just not what the market supports. And so it's math. All of it's math. The land plus the buildings plus the rent. You know what I mean? And so if you understand, you have experience, and you can kind of ask those questions, it all starts to make a lot of sense. You know, it really does. And so there are tons of good deals out there. You know, I personally think it's the most exciting time for millennials to start businesses. You know, and so while it's great to have investment properties and all those kinds of things, it is a timing thing. And so, but there's no time better to start businesses. You know, you can do it on your phone with an app. And I mean, you know, you can be anywhere you want. You can be in Thailand and run a company in the U.S. It's awesome time. You guys are really coming up through incredible time. You look at the last crash, it was 12 years ago, right? So, I mean, you know, nobody was really investing then. So, there are still deals to be had. Trust me, we're still doing stuff. They're a lot harder to find. You have to be a lot more experienced to know what to look for. But the right time to buy is definitely after a crash. You know, you want to, when there's blood in the water. The problem with that time frame, though, I will let you know, is everybody's freaking out. So the banks are freaking out, and everybody's freaking out. So there's no money. You know, even investors, so why would you buy now? Like, so it's the opposite. You know, everybody's waiting for a crash. But trust me, I bought during crashes, and there's not a lot of money flowing around. People are like, oof, I'm going to hold what I got and, you know, kind of live through this. So there's psychological barriers on both ends, right? On when it's high and when it's low. Well, so real estate is a timing thing. So, you know, you have to get everything set up. So what I mean by that is you have to have your capital together, your debt, your equity, your property management, and all those kinds of things set up. But then you don't want to buy just like anything when things are high, you know. So, you buy low, sell high. Exactly right. So, you know, I bought a lot of stuff in, 06 to about, 2012. And, and we paid, great prices for all that stuff. And I don't know if we're at the top, but it's close enough for me. And we've made enough on our properties that we decided to, take some chips off the table, if you will. And as my buddy said, it's like, you never go broke by making a profit. So, you know what I mean? So, some people really try to time things. Nothing wrong with that. But, the signs to me look like the cycle might be peaking. And so we just decided to sell. Kept our golden goose, kept the rest. Now, I say that kind of tongue in cheek. What you wanna, if you're going to invest your money, in my opinion, you need to understand who you're investing it with, and you need to understand the questions that you're asking. I think that's the biggest problem with the financial services and the wealth management people. You know what I mean? They just scoop people's 401ks and they scoop people's retirement money and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But those people don't even know what they're invested in. They just get their quarterly statements and, they either went up or they went down, right? And then they meet with them once a year. It's ridiculous, really. And so you got to take you have to be very active on your own investments, period. And you have to understand it. So if you're going to invest with a guy like me, you have to be able to ask all those great questions. And, so your viewers here, they're going to have more knowledge than somebody that isn't watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really important. Yeah. So once you're like super pumped about a market, like, you know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of great things happening all over this country. I mean, big stuff's going on. So once you kind of identified, okay, this is happening, then you start getting into the economics around it. So for example, is there a housing shortage? There may or may not be, right? So if there is, then that's the opportunity. Okay, we're going to really go hard down on that. I own a bunch of self-storage units, for example. When we look at where we're going to put a self-storage, we obviously want to put them where others aren't, right? You don't want to be across the street and down the road. You don't want 6 options on one main road, right? It's pretty common sense, right? But you go 5 miles this way or 10 miles this way, it might be an amazing spot, same sub-market, you know what I mean? Same thing with office buildings, which we own, or same thing with apartments. So you got to kind of take a look at that. And then from there, if we're trying to buy something, it's just math. Rents minus income, or rents minus expenses equal NOI, net operating income. And I have that in the book.
Yeah.
And if that is super positive and you put your debt on afterwards and there's cash flow, it's a go. So for me, it's always cash flow based. If I'm going to put 10 grand down or 100 grand down or $1 million down, it doesn't really matter. I always look at what's the property going to produce for me or my investor, because it all boils down to return every single time. So it's just math at that point.
I always borrow to invest. One of my favorite books that just came out with is called Fake. Fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. I use debt to invest. But to be able to do that, to go to here, to get rich, to do that, you've really got to have a lot of financial education. I don't recommend it, but it's the best way to get rich. President Trump, my friend, we wrote 2 books together. I know some of you guys hate him. A lot of people hate the guy, but he's very smart. He's a capitalist. Obama, socialist, communist. Hillary, crook. So anyway, be very careful right now, because I use debt, Trump uses debt. The more debt we use, the less tax we pay. That is why I love real estate. I can use debt and pay no taxes, make a lot of money. So that's really what I teach. I don't recommend it, but for those of you who understand what's called an infinite return, it's the best way to get rich, but you have to have a lot of financial education. So the reason the rich don't pay taxes is because there's 3 types of income. They'll never teach you this in school. The fake teachers will never. There's 3 types of income. Okay, number 1 type of income is earned income. That's earned income. It's when you work for money. It's earned. So that earned income shows up here. So these are the guys that pay tax. So when all the guys are screaming tax the rich, well, you can't tax them because they don't have jobs.
That's absolutely
It's kind of
right.
funny, isn't it? We're going to tax the rich. Oh, yeah. Good luck, And then the second type of income is portfolio income. And portfolio income is from flipping houses, or you buy a stock for like $10, you sell it for $20. That's portfolio income. Okay? I don't do that. Trump doesn't do that. So most guys who are flipping houses and all that, buying stocks and flipping to you're getting this type of income. So this income is about 20% today. Some of that here. But the income that the rich work for is called passive income. Passive income is also known as cash flow. That's the name of our game, cash flow. And that income is income that's flowing from here to here. It bypasses taxes. So I know it doesn't sound fair, and it isn't fair. I don't disagree with you. But what's not fair is our schools, which are part of the problem, will never explain that. Our school system is so fake, it's more fake than those fake plastic plants there. And these teachers, bless their heart, they don't know any of this. And I really want to talk to you about the most important subject for all of us today, rich, young, poor, or old. It's called financial education. And as you know, our school systems teach us nothing about money. Nothing. It's pathetic. They have financial literacy courses today. Well, that's not financial education. It's really pathetic. And what's happening for most people today is, they follow that age-old mantra, go to school. What do you learn about money in school? Nothing. Get a job. Well, jobs are disappearing. Not only that, is that with artificial intelligence and G5 coming, more jobs are going to get wiped out. Plus, with driverless cars, more jobs are getting wiped out. So why would you go to school to get a job? And then work hard for money, but pay taxes. Taxes are going to keep going up, sports fans. They have to. Somebody's going to pay off this massive mountain of debt stacking up all over the world. And the only way they pay off debt is via taxes. And then they tell you to get out of debt. Oh, God. Debt is money. Please understand me. In 1971, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, money became debt. So the rich know how to use debt to get rich. And that's what I do. My friend Donald Trump, I know some of you hate the guy, more power to you, you know. But we use debt as money. And other guys will tell you get out of debt. Well, you choose. The rich use debt to get rich, and the poor and middle class get wiped out because they're in debt. That's because of the lack of financial education. And they tell you to invest for the long term in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. The key word in there is invest for the long term. Why would you invest for the long term when they're printing trillions of dollars and ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, they're paying you nothing for your money? And you're going to hold for the long term, and you got HFT, high frequency trading. You know, they can trade 1,000 pieces of stock in a second, and you don't have a prayer. You're trading against a machine, a robot. So all this financial advice people are giving out there is a recipe for disaster. Again, this is my message to anybody, including millennials, is where is your head? And I know most millennials, they want a high-paying job. They want to be able to pay the rent, eat, and all this stuff. And then you dream of the big house, a nice car, and all that. But that's why 99% of Americans are broke, because their heads are in the wrong spot. So when I asked Kim if she would take an accounting course, it was just 2 days. You know, I wanted to see if her head could get into the asset column. That was the difference, wasn't it?
Yeah, and actually, it didn't happen right at that moment, but it's...
You fell in love with me?
Of course I did. Of course I did. But this started the journey on investing. This started the journey on assets. Mm-hmm. But I do remember the moment down the road where, just like everybody else, I was focused on the income column, mm-hmm. get a job, get the pay raises. If you're an hourly wage, work more hours, yeah. or raise your hourly wage. So I was always focused here. And then finally, this is after we'd actually bought some investment properties, the light finally went on, and I'm like, instead of focusing on acquiring income, mm-hmm. what if we focus on just acquiring assets, mm-hmm. that the assets go into the income column?
Like this.
Mm-hmm. So that was a huge shift in my mindset. And once that shift happened for me, I don't think about the income column anymore. I just think about the asset column.
And that's our game called cash flow.
Yeah.
The first way you understand risk is you look in the mirror. Yeah. It's who's looking back at you. You're the risk, not the investment. For example, I invest in a lot of real estate and say, oh, real estate is so risky, so I think I'll buy ETFs. So you play it safe, but you'll learn more by investing in real estate, right? Because you'll make more mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's the difference there. Mm-hmm. So it's not real estate that's risky, it's you're risky.
Yeah. And sometimes it's ironic because I think about it like, so blindly turning your money away to someone you barely know isn't risky. Or let's say, I don't know, maybe just depending on this job where your employer can fire you any day isn't risky either. You know, it makes you think a little, what truly is risky for you?
Yeah.
How do you define it?
And you look at all the pensions of the school teachers, firefighters, and all the guys with 401ks. They're all bankrupt because Wall Street stole their money from them. You know? And the Federal Reserve Bank, they're run by PhDs, like my poor dad. Mm-hmm. And PhD stands for poor, helpless, and desperate. The Fed has not been right in years. Everybody worships the Federal Reserve Bank. The other day, somebody says, what do you think about artificial intelligence? I said, oh, are you talking about the Federal Reserve Bank? You know, they're a criminal operation. They're the guys stealing from our pension systems. It's horrible what's going on because we have all these PhDs, poor, helpless, and desperate people who are risk averse. It's funny, isn't it? It's really funny. But let me tell you what risk is. So,
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So when you go to your banker does not ask you for your report card. So here's the cash flow game, and this is called a financial statement. What makes the cash flow game different from Monopoly, which how my rich dad taught me via Monopoly, is my rich dad also taught me about financial statements. So the cash flow is the only game with a financial statement. So really simply, when you look at a financial statement, there's income, expense, assets, liabilities. There's one more thing in the cash flow game on the financial statement you'll see. It's the most important statement of all. It's called the statement of cash flow. It's off to the side here. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur or a capitalist, you have to have one of these. If you're going to be rich, you have to have one of these. But 99% of all high school students leaving school and college have no idea what this is. You have FICO scores, you know, but you don't know what this is.
No.
So when a banker asks you for your financial statement, they want to see how smart you are here. So let me tell you why school makes students poor. So really simply, it's this. Let's say I have a master's in arts, Master of Arts degree, right?
Yeah.
Or a Bachelor of Arts degree.
Yeah.
Do I learn anything about income?
No.
What about Greek mythology?
Oh, there you go.
I
That's
learned
very important.
nothing about income. And we wonder why kids are leaving school, or young generation, looking for that high-paying job. But now let me ask you this. If you have a degree in technology, do you learn anything about assets?
Never.
So you could be a techie and you know nothing about this.
Yeah.
You could be a techie and know nothing about this. You see, when a banker looks at your financial statement, they're looking at the mirror of you. This is a reflection of you. And if you got Jack here and Jack here, then you're not that smart financially. So the reason the cash flow game is such an important game, it teaches you what is important to your banker or for a capitalist or for an entrepreneur, is that an entrepreneur's got to know how to increase their income.
Yeah.
And an entrepreneur's got to know how to create assets. If you don't know those two things, you should not be an entrepreneur. You should be an employee, which is why so many young people coming out of school have massive student loan debt over here, right? But they don't know anything about this and about this here. That's risky.
And we always have to find outside resources to like find this information, learn this information, you know, taking courses here at Rich Dad, learning through your seminars. And so it's really astonishing how something that's supposed to prepare you for the future leaves you with just the most important documents that we're told that we need to have are a resume and your report cards, your transcripts. But in reality,
if you're going to be an employee.
Exactly. But for entrepreneurship, which is what a lot of people come to us for, this is where you can learn it here, because in the school system you won't.
You see, if you're going to increase your income right over here, you need a real teacher. If you're going to acquire assets, you need real teachers. What is high risk is asking people who are fake teachers, like my calculus teacher and my accounting, you love accounting teachers, don't you?
No, I hate them.
Did your accounting teacher know anything about this?
No, nothing.
Did your accounting teacher know anything about this?
No.
That's risky. So that's why I wrote the book Fake. Fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. And what Wall Street is telling you to do was just give your money to them.
Yeah.
That's risky. So the reason I say only lazy people use their own money is because it takes much more intelligence to raise capital. And so I've never been able, ever since my rich dad, as a little boy, my rich dad forbade me from ever saying, I can't afford it. He says, figure out how you can afford it. How can you do something? Figure out how you can do something. So over my lifetime, most of the projects I've started, I've never had any money. I like not having money because it forces me to think. I get creative. I have to educate myself. I have to talk to rich guys. Hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? And what has happened to me, and I just turned 72, I've never needed money. Because if I need money, I figure out how to raise it.